Greetings, gamer guys and gals! If you're not a gamer, then you're missing out, because today I'm covering my top 10 favorite Nintendo 64 games. Now, just like the last video, these are my personal favorites, and if your favorites don't make it on this list, I apologize. It's probably because I never owned it, never played it, or the game didn't resonate well with me. This video is going to be a bit different, because it'll have a few honorable mentions, unlike my top 10 SNES video. So if you don't see one of your favorites in the top 10, then it might just appear in the honorable mentions. Again, these are my opinions, so try to keep an open mind. If you do wish to express your feelings about a particular game, feel free to write about it in the comments below. With that said, let's get to the countdown. Developed by IDK Games, Gauntlet Legends is a classic action RPG dungeon crawler, first released on arcade in 1998, and then ported to the Nintendo 64, PlayStation, and Dreamcast in 1999. The only reason why I had this game was because of my father, who worked for a carpet cleaning company, found a copy of this game in a house he was cleaning. My brother and I played this game quite a lot as kids. We both had our favorite character to play. Out of the 4 characters, the warrior, the wizard, the archer, and the Valkyrie, I preferred the wizard and my brother preferred the Valkyrie. I really loved the RPG aspect, which allowed you to level up and increase your strengths and abilities. The dungeons were long but also fun. There were many secrets to find, some of which were needed to complete the level. There was an array of items to help you through the game, too many to list on this video. You can also find food to replenish your health and treasure to purchase stat upgrades, food, and items. One of the reasons why this game is so low on the list is due to the fact that there was no save space on the cartridge and everything had to be saved on a memory card that you had to plug into the controller. We never had a memory card, so whenever we played, we had to play through the entire game, or if we needed to stop, we needed to leave the console on in order to continue later. When you're low on health and you're looking for food, the first thing you would do is bust open barrels, only to be surprised by Death himself. In this game, Death will follow you until he has drained 100 of your health. Now the bosses were pretty difficult too, from dragons to slimes and whatever the heck this is. I remember my brother and I having a pretty hard time with a lot of these bosses. Now on the plus side of things, there is a new Steam version of Gauntlet, which my friend and I may very well start a Let's Play of it pretty soon. Who knows? It seems like it would be a great idea. But overall, this was a pretty fun game to play, which is why it was on this list. I enjoyed this one far more than the first and third of the series, Mario Party 2. I loved how each character wore a specific outfit for each course. The object of the game was to have more stars than any other player. Each star costs 20 coins, in which you get said coins by competing in various mini-games against the other players. Many of these games were fun, yet challenging, that required a certain amount of skill, while few others were based around luck, which I hate luck-based games. Each board has its own unique style, such as Western Land having a train, Horror Land having several boos and other mysterious things, and Pirate Land having the dolphin docks. On these boards there were various indicators on the spaces: blue that rewarded 3 coins, red that confiscates 3 coins, the happening space with a question mark has something random that happens on the course, the chess space which allows you to play an item mini-game, the battle space where each player puts up a selected amount of coins to duke it out for the pot. Lastly, there's the Bowser space where anything can happen, usually bad. Also on the board, there is a space you walk past to initiate a conversation with a boo, who offers to steal coins or a star, depending on how many coins you can offer. What? No. No, boo. Get away. No! There was also item shops that you could stop by to purchase an item. The best item is the lamp, which you can use to summon a genie who will take you directly to the star. Occasionally, walking around the board, you can land on a blue space that may prompt a brick block to appear, in which may hold coins or even possibly a star. I hate it when a computer player gets one of these blocks and has a star, thus giving him first place right off the bat. I'm looking at you, Luigi. You and also your damn keys. But anyway, this was one of those games that I played a lot with my dad and my brother growing up. We would play this game a lot, and that's one of the reasons why this game falls on my top 10 list. Yes, Pokemon Snap. The game where you just want to stare at that cute Pikachu, but the damn 01 has no friggin' park function. You play as a young photographer named Todd Snap, who traverses an island to take pictures of Pokemon for Professor Oak. You travel to a place such as a beach, tunnel, volcano, river, cave, valley, and even a rainbow cloud way up in the sky. Throughout each of these areas, you use items such as apples and pester balls and even a Pokeflute, given to you by Oak, in which aids you to snap the perfect images of various Pokemon. I always found it fun looking at the expressions of the Pokemon after you pelt its face with a pester ball. Or, take that, Pikachu. Or watch them dance with a Pokeflute. Oh yeah, work it, Snorlax, work it! For some Pokemon, it was always a pain trying to snap a shot with them in the center of the photo. I'm looking at you, Zubat, Magikarp, Goldeen, Dratini. It's not quite in the middle. Shut up, Oak! Pokemon weren't the only things captured on film. There was also a side mission where you had to take pictures of the Pokemon signs, which granted you access to the final area, Rainbow Cloud, where you find the elusive son of a bitch Mew. My friend hated that damn shield it had. Well, aside from some of the stress you might get from trying to take pictures of some of these Pokemon, this game was still one of the greatest in my mind on this system, which is why it was on this list. Next! All the blame for me loving this game goes to dun dun dun, my mother. She played this game a lot when it was on the NES. You can also equally blame my dad for also finding this game whilst cleaning an empty house, just like he did Gauntlet Legends and Mario Kart 64, and among the other games we had on the Nintendo 64. This version of Dr. Mario was special. Not only did it have classic single-player mode, it also had a story mode where you could play as Dr. Mario or Wario. If you beat this mode on a harder difficulty, you will then face Metal Dr. Mario or Vampire Wario, depending on which character you chose. During this adventure, you encounter many enemies that you haven't even seen in the Mario adventure before. Weird, right? Just look at these things. They're crazy looking. In a cute way. Now, this game also had a multiplayer function too. Not only was it 2-player, but it was also 4-player. You could play a 4-player free-for-all or a team battle against your friends or family. If I had to pick out one con for this game, it would probably be because when you do the harder difficulties, they end up getting really hard. Like, super hard. Like, oh my god, what is up with these AI settings hard? But that's probably just about it when it came to like anything that I thought was wrong with this game. This was one of those games that I really enjoyed because I've always enjoyed Tetris or anything puzzle-like. So that's why it ended up on here on this list, especially since I always played against my mom, and when I started beating her, she didn't want to play anymore. Let's move on with the countdown. This game stood out from other racing games, even Mario Kart 64. Yes, both of these games utilize items during the race to trip up other racers, but this game was the first to utilize different vehicles. Cars, planes, hovercrafts, Obviously, each of these vehicles were specific to the levels that they were made around them. You had land-based levels, water-based levels, some levels that just made it more convenient to use a plane. The cast of characters were what really made this game so memorable for me, one of which ended up getting his own series of games, but we'll get to that later. Aside from just plain racing, this also stood out from Mario Kart because it had a story and adventure mode where you would race to win balloons, which were needed to access more levels in different areas. Each area had a boss that you had to defeat for a piece of a Whizpig amulet that you can only get after beating the boss a second time. After the first time, you were told to collect silver coins from each track in the area before you were able to race the boss a second time for the amulet piece. This was always annoying because it required you to race through the same 4 tracks you had just finished previously. It also unlocks the trophy race where you had to race the 4 tracks a third time. You need all 4 pieces of the amulet before you can race against Whizpig, the antagonist of the game. The controls for this game really took a while to get used to. The drifting controls had always felt a little strange to me as a kid when comparing to Mario Kart. There was also a battle mode that this game had, similarly to Mario Kart, though I didn't really care much for it. It was just a little too crazy and hectic for me. When playing against the computers in a race, they sucked. However, in a battle mode, they always had perfect aim. What's up with that? But this was one of those games that I played a lot with my brother and friends growing up as well. I always enjoyed coming back to this. It had great music. Overall, it was just a really fun racing game, which is why it was number 6 on this list. And here we are with Paper Mario. Now, I'll be honest with this one. I actually played Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door way before I actually got a chance to finally play this one. But when I did play this one, it ended up becoming one of my favorite games on the Nintendo 64. This game was a continuation of the RPG Mario series. This was supposedly going to be a sequel to Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, but somewhere along the way they ended up making a paper variant and put it on the Nintendo 64. You all know the story. Bowser kidnaps Peach and Mario has to save her. However, Bowser steals the Star Rod from Star Haven and uses its power to grant his wishes by making him invincible and uprooting Princess Peach's castle. Now it's up to Mario to find all the Star Spirits who provide him with the power to counter the Star Rod. Despite the fact that Bowser is still the main enemy, it wasn't its usual clash of Mario vs. Bowser. The different elements of RPG were what made this game much more unique than your typical Mario game. I love the battle system, I love the art style, and I love most of the characters. This had a unique party system that allowed you to have one ally fighting alongside Mario in every battle, many of which were very helpful. There were a few characters that I thought weren't very useful in battle, such as Perry Carey the Paratroopa, Sushi the Cheep Cheep, and Lackalester the Lakitu. Yes, these characters play their part outside of battle, but their abilities in battle lack something to be desired. You do encounter Yoshi's Island in the game, however, one does not accompany Mario on this adventure. The other thing that bothered me was that you only had the ability to guard against damage, but not avoid or counter. If something was attacking you, you pressed the A button to guard against the attack. However, there were badges that you could equip to Mario to augment his defense or guard, along with several other effects. Overall, I've come back to this game, played through it, and beaten it countless times ever since I got the game on my Wii Virtual Console. And I always love a good RPG, and Paper Mario is one of the best in my opinion. And that's why it's number 5 on this list. Now I know many of you are surprised that this game is on my top 10 list. I happen to really love puzzle games, especially this one. Pokemon is not the main reason either. It was mainly because it used the same engine as Tetris Attack, aka Panel de Pon in Japan. The Pokemon just made it more enjoyable. You could play as many popular characters from the anime like Ash, Misty, Brock, Team Rocket, the Kanto Gym Leaders, and the Elite Four members, not to mention Mewtwo from the first movie. I've played and beaten this game so many times, more than I can count on both my hands and feet. One Piece Stadium is where you play as Ash, and you go through all other characters up to the end where you would receive a trophy for completing this mode. The difficulty ranges from easy to normal, then hard, very hard, and then finally super hard. The best I've done was completing super hard with only 2 continues. Now there were other modes, Time Zone where you play an endless game, 2-Piece Stadium which is multiplayer, Puzzle University where you complete certain restrictive games in a certain number of moves. The normal mode is in 2D, but there is also 3D mode. I can understand the concept for 3D, but for me it didn't work. It was just too confusing because there was too much on the screen. It was because of that what made the spa service mode in the game rather difficult. Darn that Team Rocket. Why'd they have to infiltrate the spa in this game? But anyway, this game was one of those that I've spent countless hours upon. And that's why it's on this list, because it is one of my most favorite puzzle games of all time. This was the racing game of all racing games at the time. Much like what I said in my top 10 SNES games video, this is that game that allowed you to play as your favorite Mario characters and race to the death! Just kidding. The only difference is that you have Donkey Kong instead of that weird Donkey Kong Jr., and Koopa Troopa was replaced with Wario. The courses were so diverse, and it was so enjoyable to see each character had their own themed track. I mean, you have Mario Circuit for Mario, Luigi Circuit for Luigi, the Royal Circuit for Peach. Then there was, what was it, Jungle Japes or something like that for Donkey Kong? But it was like another name for it. It had like, I think it had banana in it or something. I don't remember what the name of the course was. But there was also Bowser's Castle and Yoshi Valley, Toad's Turnpike. This game had some of the most amazing track designs that we have seen up to this point. So all we've had before were these kind of flat and boring tracks on the Super Circuit. The aforementioned Bowser's Castle was one of my favorite tracks in this game. I love how it really did feel like you were driving through his humble abode, filled with danger. I believe the track that was the most irritating was Banshee Boardwalk. Sadly, Rainbow Road was not the most irritating track on this game. I mean, normally Rainbow Road is like the death course for all players, but the Rainbow Road in this one had a guardrail that prevents you from falling off the edge. The only downside was that it was excruciatingly long and you had to go through 3 whole laps for it. Now, as I said, Banshee Boardwalk was probably the most annoying. You didn't really have any problem with ghosts, but the real difficulty was the bats, the turns, and narrow paths. You'll turn one of these sharp turns only to see a banana peel there and it spins you right off the edge of the course. Naturally, Mario Kart would have an abundance of items, such as the red and green shells, bananas, mushrooms, stars, lightning, the boo, the fake item block, and the dreaded blue shell. This is the beginning of how the blue shell destroyed friendships, especially in later installments of this game. But with all that said, this is still one of my most favorite Nintendo 64 games. But there's still 2 more that are higher on this list. Okay, who didn't like Super Smash Bros? This was a fighting game that you could take your favorite characters and pit them against each other in either a timed or stock-based matches. You started off with 8 characters: Mario, DK, Link, Kirby, Samus, Fox, Pikachu, Yoshi. And as you progress through Classic Mode, you can unlock different characters through challenges such as Luigi, Ness, Captain Falcon, and Jigglypuff. Funny fact, my brother and I nicknamed Jigglypuff Jigglypoop when we were younger. My friend Cyrano informed me that he calls Jigglypuff Pink Stink. Well, at the end of Classic Mode, you would fight a large white glove known as Master Hand. Master Hand was the one who brought all the fighters together in the Smash Bros. Universe. Between matches in Classic Mode, there were also challenges like break the targets and board the platforms. I personally didn't have an issue with either of these two challenges, but many I have known did have difficulties with these, mainly because of the controls that the Nintendo 64 elicits. People were still getting used to the control stick and having to become less dependent on the D-pad since the analog stick was the main movement, and it had different variants on how fast you can move. It also played a part in button combinations to perform smash attacks, such as like your side smash, up smash, and down smash. You had to press harder on the control stick and the A button at the same time in order for you to unleash a smash attack. Otherwise, you would perform a move known as a tilt attack. And lastly, the thing that I wanted to say was not only did you unlock 4 other characters, there was also one stage that you were able to unlock as well, and that was the Mushroom Kingdom. From what I can recall, that was the hardest thing to unlock in this game. Anyway, this game was a blast for most people, and it's probably number 1 on a lot of people's lists. At least way up there. But for me, there was still one other game, or games in this case, that still beat Super Smash Bros. Now, before we get to number 1, I would like to talk about a few honorable mentions. First up is GoldenEye 007. Now, I don't really generally enjoy any kind of first-person shooter. I will be honest, I had never played the story mode for GoldenEye. However, I really enjoyed the multiplayer in this game. I've probably spent as much time as some other people on this game with both modes as I have on multiplayer. I've always played this game with 3 other people, and what I found the most enjoyable with this game is the license to kill mode, especially when you don't have any weapons, you only have bare hands. But despite how much I enjoyed killing someone with a slap from a karate chop, it was not enough to make it on the top 10. Now next is Donkey Kong 64. This game was a gem of its own. Not only did you play as the dynamic Kong duo, you also had 3 other members of the Kong family: Tiny Kong, Lanky Kong, and Chunky Kong. Each character had their own special abilities that help you progress through each level. To make the game feel not far from its roots, they also included Cranky Kong, who played a scientist, Candy Kong, who is a musician, and Funky Kong as a weapons specialist. Despite being a pretty popular game and one of the top games that Rareware had done, I didn't really enjoy it like many others. I did enjoy it enough to play through and beat in the game and occasionally go back to it, but it still wasn't enough to make it on my top 10. Lastly, in these honorable mentions, we have Yoshi's Story. This game was told in a storybook format. As a child, I really enjoyed this game a lot. However, as I grew older, I couldn't bring myself to appreciate the game for what it was anymore. The reason for that was when I came back to this game, it just felt too much like a game for children and I had outgrown its style. Despite that, I do remember really loving this game as a kid. I've always loved Yoshi, and this was just too cutesy to make it onto the top 10. My number 1 is a tie. between Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. Okay. Now I decided to combine the both of these games together because I just love the series. Love it! In both of these games, you play as both Banjo the Bear and Kazooie the Breagle, which I did later find out that a Breagle is a fake species of bird that was made up specifically for this game. In Banjo-Kazooie, the duo venture forth to save Banjo's sister Tootie from Gruntilda the Witch, who is trying to steal her beauty. I did not intend for that to rhyme, so I apologize. In the second game, they need to restore life to Bottles, who was killed by Gruntilda, and King Jingaling, who had his life drained by Gruntilda and his sisters and their machine called Bob, or Big O Blaster. Along the way, Banjo-Kazooie received help from their friends, Bottles, Jam Jar, Mumbo Jumbo, Humba Wumba, and many others. Bottles in the first game and Jam Jar in the second taught them their abilities, whereas Mumbo Jumbo in the first and Humba Wumba in the second transformed them into various animals or objects required for a specific puzzle. The stages were beautifully designed and the music by Grant Kirkhope was brilliantly composed for each stage. Each character, whether good or bad, were memorable in their own way. Gruntilda is probably one of my favorite villains in video games, due to her quirky rhymes and nature. Banjo-Tooie is Banjo-Kazooie, but more. Everything that was in the first game was also in this one. What made Banjo-Tooie stand out from the first was Banjo-Kazooie could now separate from each other, each of them having their own unique abilities to them while they were separated. Banjo had more uses for his backpack than just carrying Kazooie, and Kazooie could move a lot faster without carrying Banjo. Also, every stage had a boss that you had to battle in order to get a Jiggy. I've loved these games so much, there was never really anything that I could not like about these games. To mention something related to Banjo-Kazooie, the original creators of this amazing series have reunited to create Playtonic Games, where they are working on the spiritual successors of Banjo-Kazooie. The new duo is called Yuka and Laylee, the iguana and bat respectively. This game will have the same musical composer Grant Kirkhope along with David Wise, who is the composer for the Donkey Kong Country series and Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze. This game is set to release on all platforms in October of 2016. And there you have it, my number one being Banjo and Kazooie. I've loved these games so much. Look on the side over there, you probably don't even see a single con. Well, in my opinion, there was nothing wrong with these games. Thank you Banjo-Kazooie and thank you Rareware for bringing me this great game. And there you have it, my top 10 favorite Nintendo 64 games. I would like to give a very special thanks to my buddy Cyrano for helping me make this video, as well as my top 10 logo that you see over there on the left corner. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed watching this. Please leave some comments down below, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, telling me what your top 10 favorite Nintendo 64 games are, or at least what's your number one favorite. I would love to hear it. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.